Hey friend, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here listening to another episode of the Pattern Design Circle podcast. Here we talk all about the ins and outs of designing knit and crochet patterns and running a business that makes it all possible. I'm Jessica, your host, knitting pattern designer, design mentor, and the friend in your ear. Can't wait to dive right in. The Pattern Design Circle podcast is sponsored by the Pattern Design Circle, a membership community for knit and crochet pattern designers that are feeling lost, lonely, or frustrated in their business. It connects you with a supportive community that's always eager to answer your questions and help you through the hard times. And there's loads of resources and activities specifically catered to business and designing. Sound like your jam? Check it out at snickerdoodleknits.com/design-circle. That's snickerdoodle, like the cookie, knits, knits.com/design-circle. All right, let's get into it. Hello, and welcome back to the Pattern Design Circle podcast. I'm so excited to have Lucy of Knit It here with me today. Knit It is a platform for using patterns in a more digital and interactive way where you can track your progress and find links to tutorials and all sorts of stuff. So I'm super excited to have Lucy here to share a little bit about the business journey to create Knit It, and then what Knit It looks like now and maybe even in the future. So Lucy, I'm so excited to have you here.
Hello, thanks so much for having me. This is really exciting. I can't wait to tell you all about it.
Yes. So your career background, education background is not in fiber, not in knitting. You want to share a little bit about your background and how you found yourself now in the knitting industry with a business?
So I studied architecture at university, which sounds like it's worlds apart, but I think there is like elements of it that are quite related to knitting.
Mhm.
In that architecture is kind of about the design and appearance, but also about the structure and how it stands up, which is essentially what knitting is in a way. You've got to make it look good, but also figure out how it's going to be the shape. So there's like a weird correlation there. Um, but I've always been a knitter. My grandma taught me when I was 8 years old, and I've kind of picked it up now and again, between then and now. And I suppose for me, knitting, the most frustrating part of it was knitting patterns, just because I found them difficult to follow. From the tiny writing and abbreviations, I just didn't know what they meant. That was where it kind of put me off, and I would stray from a pattern and make up my own, and they would usually be disasters. But
Yeah.
it amused me. So
Yeah. So did you do or have you done any designing, or did you kind of hop into Knit It from a knitter's perspective?
definitely more a knitter's perspective. I would say I do have done like the design, but it's more just the look. I don't quite know how to get it to appear the way I want it to. I know how I want it to look. It's just how it's going to construct to be a certain way. So I was definitely coming into it from more just a knitter and somebody who wanted to find a way that was easier to follow patterns. So yeah, that was the angle. And the first kind of opportunity to turn it into a business was through at my university. They had an accelerator program. So this was like a competition where they were basically looking for people to submit ideas, and then the best ideas got picked. So that's where it all started. Back in 2020. I just told them my problem. I want to be able to follow knitting patterns. I can't find anything out there. And in my head, it should be this. Um, and they took me on, and it's kind of grown and grown from there.
That is so cool. I did not realize that maybe you told us in our intro call. I don't remember, but I didn't remember that you had actually started it in school, like as part of a competition thing. So that's so cool. Um, so just for my own curiosity, have you worked in the architectural industry, or did you kind of just like hop into this and found your way this way?
Yeah, no, I so I finished uni, And then I worked in an architecture practice for maybe 3 years, kind of at the same time doing knit it as well. So that was a really busy time of full-time architecture and this full-time every the rest of the time. Um, and then I reached the point where I had completed my professional exam to become a fully qualified architect. So that was me like committing to that up to that point. And then I was kind of free to explore. So I just kind of took the opportunity and thought, it's now or never. If it works, woohoo. If it doesn't, I'll just go back to being an architect. But let's go for it. Let's do it now.
Yes, yes, that's so fun. I had to ask because I went to university for architectural engineering, and I've worked in construction. I did an internship in architecture, and I worked in interior design. But since the interior design, I've only been in the knitting industry. So
That's very cool. We got very similar careers.
Yeah, my actual degree is engineering, but I have not ever worked in an engineering office. So what did the process of, I have a little bit of a sneak peek from previous conversation that you went through some whole funding kind of process to make it work. So what did that look like? Because I know, in the knitting industry, finances is definitely a hot topic that a lot of business owners have to think about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So with that first accelerator, there was a small portion of funding. And I suppose the purpose of that was for you to go and like build prototypes and essentially prove that your idea would work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we started. And then we quickly realized that apps are expensive and it was going to take an awful lot more money to build. So then I suppose it just became a mission of where can we find the funding and who can we convince that knitting is worth investing in. So I did a couple of other startup competitions. So Scotland's quite good in the competitions that it has. There's one called Scottish Edge, and then there's another one for university alumni Converge. These are all national Scotland-wide competitions. Um, and alongside just the funding aspect, they also have a really good training program. So they teach you all the things that you need to know. And they quite quickly made me realize that there's an awful lot to business and you have to wear every single hat, especially in the beginning. Um, so that was really good and really helpful. So we were quite successful with them, and various other grants and things like that, to the point that we actually had enough money to go out there, find developers and develop the app, which was really exciting. And then more recently, I'm just in the Women in Innovation, which is an Innovate UK program. So they've picked 50 aspiring, or probably already established, some of them, entrepreneurs who, yeah, just have a really good idea. And I think what they liked with my applications anyway was a little bit of like the story and the fact that it's in the creative industries, and also that knitting is something that actually can be quite helpful and beneficial to people. Like they really understood the therapeutic nature and the de-stressing elements, even the sense of achievement that you get when you finish it. So I think just the whole concept is just quite nice. But they could also, yeah, equally see the potential. Like they know how many knitters there are. It's a really big number. And even just a small portion of that market would be quite significant. So yeah, it's been really good and we're so thankful for all the support that we've received so far.
Yes, yes, that is so cool. And I know here in the US, I want to know like the equivalent, like if there's equivalent grants or awards or anything like that. But I do know that I have seen several companies that have programs, whether it's a grant or like a scholarship or a program where it's all right, here's a few months of learning the business stuff. But that stuff is definitely available here if we have folks listening in. Maybe it's something really innovative and cool like Knit It. Maybe it's something that feels more generic, like a pattern design business, but you have a really cool spin to the designs you're creating or what you're offering specifically to your audience. So if that's something that sparks your interest, definitely dig into it a little bit and feel free to reach out to me, and I can also send some things.
Yeah, I would definitely say get involved in what's out there, because the training's invaluable, but even just like having your name out there and starting to meet people, make the connections, and you never know where these things will lead.
Yes, yes. So what was the most difficult part of the whole funding process?
Probably writing the business plan. That was quite tough. What else would it be? I don't know. It was just a lot of work and it was full on.
Mhm.
Um, because yeah, you had to really prove it and make your case for it, and back that up with facts as well.
And so that's where it's really important to really believe in what you're creating, right?
Mhm.
Like
Oh
you have
yeah,
to believe in
absolutely.
your business in order to convince somebody else that it's worth.
Yeah, I think that's maybe why I've been quite lucky, because knitting is like a passion as well.
Mhm.
So I think I suppose passion comes across a lot more easily than a different kind of business.
Yes, yes. So then the whole app creation, like, what was that process like? Was there anything surprising to you? Was it easier or more difficult, or how is that process look like?
I think first thing that we had to do was obviously find team who understood and were just as passionate as we were about the product. Although none of them had knitting experience, they all like really dove into the research to get behind it. Um, I think unusually as well, I knew quite specifically in my head how I wanted it to be. So I could give them quite a specific specification. And they maybe had less to do than they usually would. Um, and yeah, just I suppose also the realization that it'll never be perfect. Um, because we're just constantly like making improvements or tweaking bits to get it going. And I think you have to quite quickly decide there's a point where you just need to get it out there and see what people think in order to get that final perfect product that you want. Like you need to go through the process of it being wrong or not quite there,
Mm,
rather than keeping it to yourself and waiting and adding and just never doing anything with it.
yes, yes. So I'm just curious in general, like what is your um maybe favorite memory or like the best part of the journey so far since you started the very first idea of Knit It to now?
Um, oh, I don't know. I think I suppose maybe just some of the places that I've been with it, and the different people that I've spoken to about it. Like we've done shows and I've done a couple of talks, and just sharing it with people is quite good. I think it's also quite interesting how everybody that I have spoken to, they've always they always know somebody, if not themselves, that's knit. And they come away with all these anecdotes about, oh, my grandma used to make me jumpers, and oh, my mum used to do left-handed socks, things like that. It's just nice when you hear like all these little stories that don't really mean anything in like the real business world, but just connect you on a more like personal level with everyone.
Yeah, yeah. And I think for me, like the biggest thing in business is the connection. Like if you're not, if I'm not connecting with people around me, if I'm not, meeting these amazing people, like it just feels kind of lonely and isolating. And it to me feels like it pulls away from the joy and excitement a little bit. And so it's just amazing when we do.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with that. Um, but I think for me, I found Like I've always been quite a shy person, and I had to really like train myself to network and to speak to people. And it's still a work in process. Like I still find that difficult, but I just know that I have to put myself out there. And then after, when I come back home, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I did that. It was definitely worth it.
Yes, exactly. Which is actually a good thing. I mean, I love that you brought that up because there are so many designers who, in general, with business stuff, with marketing, they do struggle to put themselves out there. They are scared to share or overwhelmed by the networking and communication. Do you have any tips or anything that you found works well for you?
Um, I would say like you have to put yourself out there. Like nobody else will toot your trumpet. You have to be the one that does it. And I think the more times you do it, the easier it gets and just the more comfortable it is. Like it can be daunting in the beginning. Like I think when we first launched our Instagram, I was like, oh, what will people think? But at the end of the day, nobody's really paying that much attention to you being behind it. It's almost like separate yourself from it and just see it as the business. And if it's, I suppose the ultimate question is ask yourself, is it right for the business? And what is the end goal? Is the end goal that I want people knitting my patterns? Well, then, yes, it's the right thing to do. Put them out there.
Yes, yes. And for myself, I like to think of it as like a friendship. Like one-on-one conversations are what I love. Group settings are not my thing, but talking one-on-one with people is my thing. And so when I'm marketing, whether I'm writing an email or an Instagram post or going live, I like to really think of it more as a conversation with a friend and just sharing what I'm passionate about. And so that's something that helps me in case it helps you too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
All right, so let's talk about Knit. What are the features? I kind of did a little quick run through summary at the beginning, but what is Knit? What is it doing for knitters?
So yeah, we created Knit It in order to inspire youngsters to start knitting, essentially. And the barrier that we saw was patterns. And we felt that they really need to be digital and interactive and just something you can carry around in your pocket on a phone. So that's what Knit It is, or aims to be. We want to have a massive library of patterns, which are in our new format, which is smart patterns. And this is where we chart out the entire thing, and then you can track your place in the chart. The chart like colors in as you go through it. Each of the symbols or abbreviations has an attached tutorial video. So if you come across a stitch that you don't know, you can just instantly watch how to do it without having to go anywhere else. Um, we've got learn sections that teach different techniques, things like that. And yeah, we just want it to be the place where you would go for one of these new interactive patterns, really.
Yeah, yeah, I love it because you mentioned this was your experience learning to knit, and I know for myself as well, like just the overwhelm of all of the new things, and then like you've mentioned, like reading the abbreviation, but then having to flip back and like find what does this mean and then look up a YouTube tutorial to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
So it's so nice that it's all together in one where it's like, oh, I can just, like have it digitally, pull up the tutorial, pull up the chart, whatever I need, track my progress while I'm doing the whole thing. And so that's really cool.
Yeah, I think that's just what we're aiming for, is as easy as possible. Because, yeah, even just the tiny writing used to make me lose my place all the time. And then my mum always writes on top of patterns and scribbles notes. And then I'm like, oh, you've just made it 10 times harder for me as well. Um, so yeah, it's just even, and then having different size instructions within a pattern, like being able to filter that out, just I suppose just making it as simple as possible for the knitter, because the reason that I think most people knit is to relax. Patterns just weren't relaxing for me.
Mm.
So yeah, that's what we're trying to do, is just remove the stressful part and just leave people with the knitting.
Yeah. So in written instructions, are folks able to track where they're at in there as well, or is it just for charts?
No, so we also switched. You can either view it in the chart or you can view it in a slightly more traditional appearance in the written one. And then this just like pops up little bubbles in a list. So again, you kind of track your way through them. But it's more, yeah, just written rather than pictorial, visual.
And honestly, even for somebody who's not a beginner, having that tracking would be so helpful.
I know it's quite good because I've been knitting it and you just put something down and you just turn the app off, and then when you come back, it's like instantly right where you left off. Because yeah, I've picked up some knitting from a few months ago and I'm like, where on earth was I on this pattern? I have no idea. I tend to stop in silly places, like in the middle of increases of sleeves. I don't know why I stopped there, and I can never figure out where I'm supposed to be.
Yes, this is a specific question, but if there's like a repeat of a section, so say it's like, well, right now I'm knitting a cowl and there's 6 sections that then repeat 4 times or something like that. If I'm on, say, repeat 2 and then in the second section, is there a way to specifically track that, or like?
So you can set it to 3 different levels at the moment. So you can set it to the individual stitch, you can set it to the whole row, or you can set it to what we're calling actions. So it's like frequent, or every time the stitch changes, we can set it to that. But we are also thinking of incorporating a repeat um, separation as well. It's struggling to think because like I've got so many like feedback points in my head, and we're still trying to figure out which one is the best way to build that into it. But I think it is definitely something that a lot of people have requested, and it's definitely near the top of our list of things to do.
Yeah, it's difficult because there's always so many ideas. There are always so many things to do, and I'm sure so many things that you want to incorporate, and there's only so much time.
Yeah, I mean the list is so long of because everybody like always has a good idea, and you collect them all because you're so thankful for like their feedback. But then you end up with a massive list of stuff that you really want to do, but obviously the budget only goes so far. So it's really trying to identify what's the most important and what will help most people.
Mhm. But I think it's great how much you've already incorporated, given that it hasn't been so long ago that you just launched. What day did you launch Knit It?
Oh, it was about the 8th of September, I think, is
Yes.
when we went live.
Yes.
So yeah, it's only really been going for a month and a half. So it's exciting.
Yes. Okay, so what about the designers who are listening in here? What if they're intrigued by this idea of interactive patterns and having their patterns available on Knit It? What does the whole being a part of Knit It look like for designers? How do they submit patterns? All of that information.
Yeah, so we're always on the lookout for new patterns. On our website at the moment, we've got a page for designers where they can indicate that they're interested. And then that would take you to like a Google form where you just tell us a little bit about you and the types of patterns that you design. Um, and then we get in touch. But we're also looking at Instagram for designers, and anybody that we meet as well. Um, and yeah, to become a designer on Knit It, generally we tend to buy a license to the rights of the pattern. But our licenses aren't restrictive. We still allow designers to sell on Ravelry, Etsy, things like that. And then we also like to feature the designers in blogs and socials as well. So we do think that it's like quite a nice community where we can, yeah, just share everything knitting and get more people to start.
Yes. And right now, I know that this might be changing coming up, but as of right now, designers submit their pattern and then you Knit It does the kind of transferring whatever it takes to make it into a Knit It pattern with the smart details, correct?
Yes, yeah. So at the moment we've worked with a handful of designers who all write patterns slightly differently.
Mhm.
We take them in and we do the processing to then make them smart patterns. But yeah, we are considering potentially like creating like a template format to give to designers to put their patterns in, which will just enable us to put patterns on it quicker, which means we can then get more and just build that library and get as many designers on board as possible.
Absolutely. What does it look like for both knitters and designers who want to use the platform? Like, I know Knit It uses a subscription.
Yeah, so at the moment we've got two account types, either a free account or a subscribed account. Um, so you can go onto the website and create the free account from there. And the free account gives you access to everything except the patterns themselves. So all of the learn resources and blogs, everything like that. And then when you do subscribe, and at the moment we're looking at pricing of just £24 a year. So that's like £2 a month, which is just a cup of coffee. Um, but once you do subscribe, you get access to all of the patterns in the Knit It library. And we're nearly at 100, I think, now. So for £24, you get 100 knitting patterns, which I think is quite good. So then, once you subscribe, you can then open any of the knitting patterns in this new interactive format and knit it, and you can open like as many instances as you want. So if you've got like two kids in different sizes, you can have both of the patterns open and running at the same time. Um, and as many projects and things like that as you want as well on the go.
I love that. That's a brilliant, make sure that you can have multiple instances open. I love that so much. Something that I realized I did not ask about specifically for designers is the tutorials. Are the tutorials that are linked in patterns created by Knit It or by the designers, or where are those tutorials coming from?
Yes, so our stitch tutorials, so these are the ones like within the pattern when you come across a stitch that you don't know. Those videos are all created by Knit It. But we also have links to blog articles. And some of these blog articles are specific to a certain pattern. For example, it might be a specific type of cast on for one of our beanies. One of our designers had a blog that they'd already written. So we've just put a link within the smart pattern instructions to that blog should the pattern follower and the knitter wish to go there. So there's definitely the option to share your resources as well with it.
Love that so much. And another really cool, fun feature that I love about Knit It, I just learned about today, is the ability to take a photo of something and then Knit It turns it into, like you said, into either a cushion or a
Jumper.
A jumper. So that's such a fun feature.
Yeah, I get a feeling that we may have a Jess pattern coming this way soon. But what we do is we essentially, well, I suppose this is how Knit It started. We started by selling kits where we would turn people's photos into patterns. And now we've actually been able to incorporate it into the app. So the customer simply uploads their image and then they choose if they want it on a cushion, piece of wall art, or a jumper. So we take these like template patterns. We then take their picture, chart it up, turn it into a pattern, and then put that picture into like the jumper and send that back. And then the customer gets like the interactive pattern with their face on it, which is quite funny. Like especially I think at Christmas time, like novelty jumpers are all the rage.
Yes, I was just thinking this is perfect, like gift knitting, whether it's like a pet or a person or something special, something else that you have a photo of. Like it's just such a fun, unique gift idea.
They're really fun to knit actually, because usually like you would start at the bottom and gradually the face starts appearing. And I think it's when it gets to the eyes, you're like, whoa, that is that person. But just like the mouth and the nose when it all starts appearing. It's quite fun.
That is so fun. And then also just as an FYI for designers / business owners, Knit It does have a refer a friend affiliate program. So if you join that and refer your friends, they get a discount and you receive a voucher. So that's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. We're just well, we only started a month ago, so we're just looking to grow our user base and yeah, a little incentive for people to help share the word, really.
Yes, yes. So what's your favorite feature of Knit?
I think for me, it would have to be tracking where you are, or maybe even just also seeing the visual chart as well. So I'm definitely a visual learner,
Mm.
and yeah, the blocks and blocks of writing and having no idea of what it's supposed to look like can be really off-putting. Whereas I can just like glance at something. I suppose this may be the architecture coming out in me. Like I can read plans and things very quickly, like 2D into 3D. So probably that aspect where just seeing what it's meant to look like is the best bit for me.
Yes, I love that so much. Do you have any like favorite business tips or maybe even how you choose to approach business for yourself? You know, you mentioned like learning all of the hats that business owners have. Do you have anything that you would share with other business owners?
Yeah, I think what I have learned is play to your skills and then build the team around you
Mm.
where your skills are weak. So I think I was always like the designy, creative person, less so about the finance and also less so about sales. So that's kind of people that I've surrounded me with. My mum happens to be an accountant, which is quite lucky. So she deals with that. But we've also taken on like a commercial director, and he's a lot more about sales and getting users and things like that. So he's driving that side of the business. And then the other thing I would say would be what was told to me, which was don't be scared to share your idea for fear of people copying it, because it's through sharing it and discussing it that ideas spark and it becomes so much more. Obviously there's certain things you can say and things you can't, but I definitely wanted to keep it all to myself in the beginning, but I quickly learned that it was going to go nowhere if I did that.
Yes, I love that so much because, like we were talking about connection earlier, it is so true that when we start talking with other people about something we're excited about, maybe they have new ideas for us or we have new ideas and it just grows from there. I know that's definitely true for In Tandem, the publication that I
Mm.
am 15 other designers started last year. Uh, Originally, it was an idea for just a single book. And then I was like, no, we want to make it
Oh,
like a publication. And no, we want to make it seasonal. And like it just grows the more you talk about it. And I
mhm.
also love what you said about surrounding yourself with people that have skills that complement yours. I think that is something that in our industry and perhaps specifically among designers, maybe we struggle to build that team. We feel like we have to do it all of ourselves, or that we don't have the finances to support ourselves with more team, or whatever the reasons are. But
Mhm.
it is so valuable to really, you know, dive deeper into our own skills, use those, and then complement it with
Yeah. I
other.
mean, I think it is like recognizing what you're good at and what you're not. And then even, I suppose it then goes back to tuition then. Maybe if you don't have like budget to find somebody who can do it, but what else can you do to improve that skill?
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
And even like trading services and things like that are a thing too. There are a lot of ways to surround yourself with other people.
Mhm.
Yes. So, Lucy, it's been so amazing to have you here on the podcast. Where can folks find you and Knit It online?
Yeah, thanks for having us. So Knit It, you can find us if you just search knit-it.co.uk. And we're also on most of the social media channels, at hello_knit_it.
Love it. Thank you so much. I'll also have my own affiliate link in the description. If you want to join Knit It and then you get the discount, I will put what the discount is in the description as well. So thank you again so
Cool.
much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely.
Wow. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you found it valuable, please share the podcast with a designer friend. And if you have a minute, leave a review. It's so helpful for me and means the world to me. Chat soon.